What is going on, everybody? I am back today to talk to you about the newest Shudder original movie that I knew absolutely nothing about before I went in to watch it. All I knew was the little plot description that I read on Shudder and the poster. I saw that it was an Irish folk horror movie, which made me very excited. I haven't seen a ton of Irish cinema in my life, but I've watched a lot that I've really enjoyed. And I always love watching horror films from different parts of the world and the approach to horror. And I love folk horror, it's one of my favorite genres. I love kind of diving into folklore and like utilizing folklore as an allegory for something else. I always think that it's very well done when directors take that specific approach. And as I'm discussing this movie, it is an Irish horror movie. I'm going to do my best to try to pronounce these people's names to the best of my ability. If I screw it up, I'm very sorry. I tried to look them up beforehand and do my best pronunciations. If I butcher them, I apologize. If any of you out there are native Irish speakers, I'm going to do the best that I possibly can. But the movie I'm going to be discussing with you today is Fréwaka. Fréwaka is directed by Ashlyn Clark. Care worker Shu, who is haunted by a personal tragedy, is sent to a remote village to care for an agoraphobic woman who fears both her neighbors and the shudder, sinister folkloric entities she believes abducted her decades before. So I was really excited to watch this movie. Like I said, I'm a big fan of folk horror and I love watching folk horror movies from different parts of the world. And I thought this was excellent. I really enjoyed this movie a lot. I have very little complaints about it. It's very slow burn, but it has excellent performances. The cinematography, the production design, the atmosphere is incredible. The utilization of sound design in this is amazing. And I really love how the folk horror is an allegory for this person's trauma and the trauma that they've experienced in their life. And I'm really excited to tell you about it today. So, the beginning of the film, we are introduced to our lead character, Shu, who is in a relationship with her girlfriend, Mila, who is pregnant. And the two of them at the beginning of the movie are cleaning out Shu's mother's house. And her mother has committed suicide. And the two of them are cleaning up all these things. And we can tell early on Shu just wants to get that cleaned out and out of this house because, as we learn throughout the film, she suffered an extreme amount of trauma due to her mother. They did not have a good relationship. Her mother was emotionally abusive, tied to the church. So there's a lot of religious trauma elements in this movie. And she just kind of wants to get it done and get it over with. Well, we learn early on that Shu is going to have to leave because she is an in-home caregiver and she's been called to this job to take care of this woman who is agoraphobic. She stays locked up in her house. And so her girlfriend is going to stay behind and clean the mother's house up to the best of her ability, the rest of the stuff that needs cleaned out. So Shu gets to this community, and very early on, the people in the community tell her, hey, you don't want to be here. Like, you need to turn around and go back home. They're all speaking Gaelic, and at first they kind of like talk behind her back until they very much soon realize she also speaks the language. And that's a big part of the reason as to why she was called to do this job. So they tell her where to go to get to this house. And when she gets to the house, she meets Peg, who is an older woman who can still get around on her own. She struggles in some different spots, but she is very hesitant to let Shu in at first. She doesn't want her in the house. She has no desire to have her around. And she's very adamant on, like, if people come to my house, do not let them in. I do not want them in this house. They're out to get me. And so Shu's kind of like, oh, this is an old woman. She's suffering, probably memory loss. Things are plaguing her. But very quickly in her time at the house, weird things start to happen. And there's weird things throughout the house, and she sees these very weird things in the basement of the house, which Shu starts questioning what is happening. And as she hears from Peg, as they have multiple conversations, Peg believes that she was kidnapped by this group and tortured, and she's afraid she's going to be kidnapped again. And that's what she is so afraid of. And so the entirety of the movie is Shu trying to figure out, is this old woman just crazy, or is she telling the truth? So like I said, I love folk horror movies. I was really excited to watch this, and this movie is excellent, and there are a multitude of reasons why. For starters, the performances here are incredible, especially our two leads, Shu and Peg. The actresses here do such a phenomenal job at portraying these characters in a way that feels very realistic. Their performances are very grounded in reality. Both of them have experienced experienced a lot of trauma. And Peg, obviously being an older woman who everyone just tells her that she's crazy, she's kind of been through the worst of the worst. We see early on when she like removes her top that she's got like all of these scars on her back. So she's obviously gone through intense physical torture. And you can see that pain in her expressions and just the way that she reacts to certain scenarios. I just thought that her performance was brilliant. And same for the actress that plays Shu. I loved her performance because she has all of this associated trauma with being raised religious and like her mother kind of psychologically and possibly physically torturing her and making her go through all of these things solely at the hands of the religion that she clearly does not believe in. And then on top of that, she's in a relationship with a woman. And so it's never explicitly explored outside of like one line of dialogue, but you also feel like the pressure there of her being in a queer relationship coming from such a hyper religious household, what the ramifications on that human being would be. And so these two performances kind of showcase all of that trauma in a way that feels very realistic and it's easy to stay invested in the movie. The cinematography and production design in this are exceptional. I loved the way this looked. It captures environment so very well. And I love the little attentions to detail in the house, the door to the basement, and all the different things kind of hammered around it. It's like this bright red color. There's this consistent imagery of this portrait of Jesus with this small, like red neon cross. And then there's like this neon statue of the Virgin Mary. There's all this like really interesting religious imagery that like is done in a way that's very unique and new. And I liked that. And it really kind of like kept drilling home this idea of religious trauma that exists throughout the entire runtime of the movie in a way that didn't feel heavy-handed or needed like intense exposition for you to be able to understand what was going on. The other big part of this movie is the sound design. There's a lot of like layered sounds in this. Our lead character is slowly sort of going insane as the movie progresses on, and the things that she's hearing and the things that she's seeing. And so there's certain lines of dialogue that she talks about associated with her mother that we hear replayed in the background. And there's all these like creaks and cracks in the house and like whispers and all of these different things. And the way that the sound designers kind of approach creating a soundscape in this movie, I was just very impressed with it. I was constantly worried at what was going to happen next, and the hairs on the back of my neck were standing up through the movie. It was just very, very, very well done. And like I said, I love movies that kind of explore the idea of trauma. As someone who I've talked about this multiple times on YouTube, I experienced a lot of religious trauma growing up as a minister's son, and just kind of the psychological damage that I suffer on a day-to-day basis because of the experiences that I had. And I love movies that explore that. And I think this movie does a really fantastic job and not just exploring like religious trauma, but trauma associated with parents and like not being raised the right way, or parents not living up to the expectation of what a parent should be. And I talked about it in my recent review of the film Bob Trevino Likes It, but like this movie does a really nice job at showcasing that. We don't know much about Shu's mother, but we're implied through the dialogue and through things that she's seeing what kind of parent that she was. And I really liked that. I also liked the approach to the folklore in this movie. We're given bits and pieces of information, but I'm sure if you're familiar with this concept, you probably know a lot more about it than I do. But I really like a lot of the jarring imagery, especially like with the goat in this movie, just different things that the camera would fixate on. There's not like a lot of in-depth description as to what these people are, other than they're trying to kidnap her. And I thought that that was a really interesting approach. And I just really enjoyed this movie. My only complaint is also tied into the folklore. Because there's not a ton of exposition, I feel like the way things play out in the third act can get a little confusing. Not in terms of the movie and how it's relating the ideas to the psychological trauma of the lead character. I think that's all very successful. The issue that I have with the movie is the way that it explores just the folklore element and how like there's a lot of mystery around it. And it's fine that there's some mystery. I don't need everything explained. I just, maybe it's because of my internal curiosity. I just wanted to learn more about what these people are specifically and why they operate the way that they do. And I'm sure if I go online, I can probably research more and learn more about it. But even with that minor complaint, I don't think that takes away from how successful of an experience watching this movie is. I think it's very well done. I think the slow burn nature of the movie works really well because it just kind of descends you into chaos and insanity with the lead character. And I think that if you're looking for a great movie to watch on Shudder, Fréwaka is a very, very great choice. So, have you seen Fréwaka? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought. I thought this movie was fantastic. I really enjoyed it, and I'll look forward to watching it again. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.